I think about this in the context of bubbles and AI and everything going on. Just remember the buzz around VR from 5 to 7 years ago, and how much money was pouring into it, how big companies were, including Microsoft and Facebook/Meta, were changing their entire business models around this belief and concept that we were all going to use VR. Now, I was always somewhat skeptical on this because
you threw up when you were at CES.
I just don't like glasses.
Hi, and welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire co-founder John Cook.
We are coming to you from Seattle, where we get to report each day on what's happening around us in business, technology, and innovation. What happens here matters everywhere, and every week on this show, we get to talk about some of the most interesting and important stories and trends in the news. John, I've got a lot I want to talk about this week. I want to talk about the Major League Baseball automated ball strike system.
Hot topic.
And what it says about the future of automation, artificial intelligence, and human judgment.
And jobs.
And jobs, yes. Yeah, jobs. I've got a bit of a grab bag here that I want to start with. I also want to talk about the Rec Room shutdown.
Big news.
Big Seattle startup that's been around for 10 years that just kind of imploded in a lot of ways, just out of the blue here. We were all over that, covering that this week. But first, I want to say thank you to everybody out there who emailed us in response to our offer to provide the videos for the GeekWire Agents of Transformation event.
Overwhelming response. And kind of sorry I suggested doing it, because I think you've spent most of your week just responding to, well, I guess it's not a bad thing. You've been responding to our great listeners out there who embrace this idea of getting a little sneak peek at some exclusive content.
Absolutely. I almost hesitate to bring it up again because I think it'll...
Yeah, why don't you have people email me this time so I have to respond?
So for people who missed this, we had our Agents of Transformation event back on March 24th, and we were playing a few highlights last week, and I offered to people who got really deep into the podcast around minute 30 to provide the full videos, which were exclusive to attendees otherwise, and the condition was you had to sign up for the newsletter. And I expected maybe two or three, and we got dozens. John, I've lost count. It's upwards of 30. And maybe that doesn't seem like a lot, but to me that was a lot. And so thank you to everybody who emailed, and especially thank you for sharing how the podcast fits into your life and
some really personal notes.
It was really sweet. I was touched by it, and it really kind of made my week in a lot of ways. Hey, and I just want to say one last little appeal to folks out there. We don't ask for this very much, but if you are inclined to go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to this show and give us a rating and a review if the show is something that means something to you and you get something out of.
And meets your standards.
Please, that would be
Or
wonderful.
If it doesn't, I guess we get a bad review.
Yes, as long as we're asking for things and trading things, that would be something I would ask for. And if you're just hearing this for the first time, if you do want to hear the videos from Agents of Transformation, I will still respond and give you the link. So
you're a nice guy.
Yes. Okay, John.
Let's hop in. A lot to cover.
Okay, first off, I want to talk about April Fools real fast.
Oh, boy.
Real fast.
Our least favorite holiday in the journalism world.
This is definitely my least favorite holiday after Halloween. I hate Halloween.
Oh, I like Halloween.
I know. I'm just one of those people who does not like Halloween. But April Fools, as a reporter, has always made me angry. And this week, I was really struck by the fact that you got sucked in by an April Fool's joke.
I did. But I quickly caught it.
So
I quickly fact-checked myself and realized it was April Fool's Day.
Foundations, which is the community up on Capitol Hill run by Aviel Ginsberg and others, the startup community and co-working space, they posted that they were expanding to California and also basically
South Lake Union, and there was some ferry boat or something in there, and
they were going to expand to a boat in South Lake Union.
I don't know. I quickly saw it in LinkedIn and I posted it into our Slack for discussion.
And
quickly discovered that it was fake. And then I don't think you can repeat on this family-friendly podcast my reaction to discovering what was going on.
So my whole point is that the world is so awash in misinformation, disinformation. Why do we have to have a holiday that celebrates it? Now, I've kind of adjusted my thinking on this to an extent because, hey, maybe it's a good thing that there's a moment in time that makes everybody more skeptical about the things that they read. And so that is kind of my half glass full look on April Fool's. But I bring this up for a very specific reason.
Oh, because I have something to share with you,
Okay,
too.
let's hear it.
But no,
it's okay. So I saw a story today, today's April 2nd, and I initially assumed that it was an April Fool's joke.
We might be going to the same place on this.
OpenAI?
No.
OpenAI is acquiring TBPN. This is just out today, just out this afternoon. That tech industry talk show that's kind of this Silicon Valley, Bloomberg,
Really?
and CNBC with about 70,000 viewers. Yeah. OpenAI is buying them. Doesn't that seem like an April Fool's joke? And it's like the kind of thing that TBPN would put out there. It's kind of like...
It's real?
Yes, it's real. I looked at it. It's April 2nd, and it's a story in the New York Times.
Are they starting to buy content companies?
This is their first entree into content.
Well, I guess with the market cap and money they have, they could just buy every content company.
Doesn't it seem a little weird, though?
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to get around all the lawsuits that they face is just buy every single content company and own all the content in the world.
Maybe, but they need to put all their money, as much as they can, into infrastructure and model training. I don't get this.
I don't get it either.
So
it's not how traditional tech companies have operated.
No.
They're not a traditional tech company, so...
Yes.
Okay, I don't even know how to react to that because that's such a shocking acquisition.
Yeah, it took me like...
Any terms of the deal that you can
Not that I've seen, no. But the TBPN is going to report to OpenAI's Chief Global Affairs Officer and help with comms and marketing, and it will still maintain editorial independence. Very odd. Very odd exit. The only reason I bring it up is it's mildly interesting, and...
You thought it was an April Fool's joke?
I thought it was an April Fool's joke.
Oh, okay. Because where I thought you were going was, I know you hate April Fool's Day,
Yes.
and now I'm starting to hate it as much as you. I don't think I'll ever get to the level of hating it as much as you do, Todd, because I know you really despise April Fool's Day. But do you know what April 2nd is? April 2nd is an actual holiday, too.
What is it?
It is International Fact-Checking Day.
Oh.
Have you not seen stories about this?
This is the counter.
There's a counter. There's a counter to April Fool's Day.
That's a good day.
There you go.
All right.
So you can celebrate that with me on April 2nd.
Okay, very good. Continuing the grab bag here in the first segment, a couple weeks ago we reported that Amazon had struck a deal with FedEx Office, kind of rekindling their partnership to allow returns at FedEx offices. And a few shows ago, I was talking with Mike and Josh from Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, and one of my big complaints about the Amazon infrastructure, as it were, in the Seattle region is that I have to drive across the Ballard Bridge to Whole Foods to do my returns.
Yeah,
I mean, first world problems.
We do too.
Isn't it a pain in the butt?
Yeah.
I tried FedEx Office this week. I got to tell you, totally seamless. Completely seamless experience.
Well, where's the closest FedEx office to you?
Right over here at the PCC on the way to work. You know, in the PCC over there off of 46.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right over
I didn't
where
realize there was one in there.
There is one in there.
Right by the old GeekWire HQ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the
Just
worst...
imagine if we were still in that area.
Oh, the ultimate inconvenience. Yeah. And there's a new Starbucks right up the
That's
corner
right.
too.
That
Yes.
been beautiful.
I have to say though, the worst parking lot in the history of the world.
It's congested right
It's
in that
very
area.
bad.
Yeah.
That said, walking into the FedEx, dropping off the package, and the beauty of these situations is you don't have to pack it. You don't have to do anything but bring
Well, you don't
the
have to do
product
that
back.
when you drop it Whole Foods.
Whole Foods. No,
Yeah.
no. But the other
Well, pro tip. So you're endorsing this partnership.
yeah, I like it. The only thing that kind of makes me scratch my head is like when you talk about returns at a Kohl's or some other kind of place, there's a real incentive to the retailer. And I walked into the FedEx, I dropped off the package, and I was like, I have nothing else to do in this place. Like, there's no real ancillary benefit.
Buy some masking tape.
Do
they actually sell anything in there?
They sell other things. Yeah. I mean, I could go over and
printer cartridge.
make a couple copies.
Yeah.
It's so like it's funny because at the time, as you know, we needed stamps in the office, and so I was like, do you sell USPS stamps? And the guy just looked at me and like I was a complete idiot, and I went, Oh, I guess not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not at the FedEx.
Okay.
Anyway, pro tip. That's my tip of the week. And other than that, I really enjoyed. I'm starting to read David Pogue's book about Apple, and I actually have a trivia question coming up related to Apple's 50th and Microsoft, which I think you're going to enjoy.
Oh, great.
In the final segment.
So wait, it's Apple's 50th anniversary this year.
This year, April
And it
1st.
was really, it was April 1st. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was Microsoft's 50th
Last year.
Oh, interesting.
Microsoft was first to market at least once
Okay.
in terms of the company. All right, so stick around until later in the show for the Apple Microsoft trivia question in the final segment. And that's all I really have in my grab bag.
I thought
What
we were
have
going
you
to talk
got?
about Rec Room.
We are, but let's do that next in
Okay.
the next segment. Okay, stick around. We will talk about one of the biggest Seattle startup shutdowns in recent memory coming up next. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop and John Cook. John, I was totally surprised by this one piece of news this week. Although, actually, I have to tell you, I got a tip. I wasn't completely surprised.
Yeah, I thought you were going to break this story.
I did break this story.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't
was out
realize you
before
were out
anybody
in-
else.
But I thought there was a blog post that came out from the company that you followed up,
Yes,
because you actually
true.
did have the information about this before they publicly announced it.
Yes, I had an inside, or at least knowledgeable source, I guess, who told me last weekend on email that Rec Room was going to be shutting down its service. And for people who don't know Rec Room, it's kind of like Roblox for VR in some ways, but then they expanded beyond VR. It's a social gaming platform. It's got all sorts of user-generated content. And let me tell you, based on the reaction to the shutdown, it is central to the life of many of its users. And I got this tip, and I wasn't able to confirm it, with a second source before the company announced it. But what I did was I prepared the story. I had it already. And I think I was first out with it. I got the scoop. At least I'll count it as a scoop.
You were out there
I was out
first.
there early. And I talked with the CEO, Nick Feit, briefly. And what I did get the scoop on for sure is that Snap, the maker of Snapchat and the spectacles that'll be coming out later this year, is acquiring some of the assets of Rec Room, and some of the members of the team from Rec Room are going to be joining Snap. And of course, Snap has a big engineering office here in the Seattle region. So this to me was fascinating in part because Rec Room, over the course of its life, has attracted about 150 million users. I mean, this is not a small community. And somehow they were not able to make a profitable business out of this. They raised tons of money. At one point, they were valued at $3.5 billion. Like, do you have any sense, just from your experience covering the startup beat over the years, like, what does this say? What do you take from this? Yeah.
I mean, startups are hard.
Yeah.
Raising a lot of money makes them harder.
Right.
The more money you raise, the higher the expectations are and the bigger the exit you need. And I think the big story here with Rec Room is the market completely shifted. I mean, remember, there was a company called Facebook way back when that changed their name to Meta because of the metaverse and VR. And I think this is a good reminder. Rec Room was built originally kind of as a VR gaming startup. And I know they've shifted and had a lot of different models over the years, but really at its heart was this VR model. And they were banking on this idea that we were going to live in these virtual worlds and use VR on a daily basis. And boy, I think about this in the context of bubbles and AI and everything going on. Just remember the buzz around VR from 5 to 7 years ago, and how much money was pouring into it, how big companies were, including Microsoft and Facebook/Meta, were changing their entire business models around this belief and concept that we were all going to use VR for everything from our entertainment to commerce to training to working on your toilet and fixing your toilet and you know everything. Your entire world was going to be virtual. Now, I was always somewhat skeptical on this because
Because you threw up when you were at CES.
I just don't like glasses. I don't like any accoutrements on my body.
Yes.
I don't like jewelry. I don't like glasses. I don't like tattoos. I don't like any of that crap. And so to go around,
You're an outlier. You're such
go
an
around
outlier.
with like an add-on piece of hardware that I have to add to my body to live my life was, I thought, a bad concept. I think there are some lessons here in that technology waves come and go. They are often overhyped, and sometimes they fizzle out. And you see the results here with Rec Room. I guess the flip side of it, VR and their model could have hit the perfect inflection point, like an OpenAI, and been off to the races. But things shift, and it proves the point, and why I think it's important in the AI story is because there is so much hype, and no one knows how this is going to play out. Not even the smartest people in the technology ecosystem know how the AI revolution, transformation, whatever you call it, is going to play out.
Yes, and
some people will put some theories
Okay,
out there, and they might end up being proved right. There's also a high chance they're going to be proved wrong.
Okay, I don't think there's a direct analogy or a direct parallel between where VR was in its early days and where AI is in its early days. And here's why. I think that AI is proving true utility day to day for users. I think that the people who are using it and making the most out of it are getting the kind of value that you wouldn't have gotten from VR in the early days when it was clear it was mostly just kind of a novelty. AI is beyond novelty, I would say.
I think so too. We've talked on this podcast before that I believe this is a much bigger transformation,
Yes.
a bigger wave. So in my heart, I do believe that. I think it's just a good reminder for the
Yes.
tech industry to go back 5-7 years and think about the point in time we're at when companies like Meta were changing their name to Meta because they thought the entire tech ecosystem was going to be based on VR.
Yes.
And it didn't play out that way.
Yeah, totally. I would say that then applies to these sub-trends that we see inside AI. Things like agents, although I think that's also proving value. But specific things, the flavor of the month in AI, that's where I think you have to really apply the skepticism. To me, though, it's clear. You had the PC revolution, you had the internet revolution, you had the smartphone era.
The VR revolution.
No, I would say the VR didn't get up.
But there were people who were saying
true,
it was the
true,
VR revolution,
true.
and there was a lot of venture capital and a lot of smart people who were betting big on this, including the investors that threw the money into Rec Room that gave it a $3.5 billion valuation
Yes.
at one point, and the people who were investing in Meta, who thought they were investing in the concept here that it was going to be this transformative business event, and it wasn't.
And I think we're past that point with AI. I think AI has answered that question, and it's gone past that moment where you could say that it's a flash in the pan. That's my opinion.
I would agree with that. I just think there are lessons to be learned from the
Yes.
history in tech, and people get really, really excited about the new shiny object,
Sure.
and it may or may not play out the way people are thinking.
In the meantime, I have to say I feel for some of the Rec Room users.
And employees and
and
staff.
employees.
I always had the utmost respect for that leadership team. They were
Yes.
always very forthright in terms of a company and how they wind
Yes.
themselves down and do it. Because, Todd, we've done this for a long time. There's a right way and a wrong way to go through this process.
Oh, yeah.
And we've covered plenty of companies that have had to shut down over the years that have not done it properly. And I think that's more of the norm. And so let's give a hat tip to the Rec Room executive team for knowing when to turn the lights off and doing so in a responsible way.
I just will say I was getting phone calls on the night of the announcement because a lot of people in their distress will read an article and they'll see a phone number at the bottom, which is my phone number as the reporter, and they'll think that I'm with the company because they're
You were
reading
getting calls from
quickly.
users?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Questioning my sources.
Well, people thought
in
it was
some
an April
cases.
Fool's joke.
Yes.
Speak back to our
Well,
April
it was
Fool's
the
conversation.
day, it was the day before
Yeah,
April
people
Fool's,
thought it was
though.
an April Fool's joke. They just couldn't believe it.
Some people
Yeah.
who were texting me thought I was with the company. One person who called me knew that I was a reporter and was seriously questioning my reporting on the snap part of it. Where did you get this information? How did you know this? And I had to say at 9:30 at night when I got this call, they woke me up on the couch, to be candid. They called twice.
Hardest working man in the biz right
yes,
there.
I had to explain to them, well, if you read the story a little more closely, it will show you that Snap confirmed that for us. Anyway, people were distraught, and I have a lot of sympathy for that. I could see where if somebody took away my favorite tool or my favorite community,
yeah,
I'd be
and that's
very
the
upset.
thing. This was a community and a
Yes.
community of users, and it was built in a manner of maybe an older style social network where people
Yes.
were really connected to one another. And so there were real relationships. There's real content that people were invested in. And yeah, that's hard for folks to digest that news.
Yep. All right. I'll link to all of our coverage of that. And coming up next, I want to talk a little baseball, and then we'll jump into trivia.
Can't wait for the baseball discussion.
All right. That's coming up next. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop with John Cook. John, I'm a big fan of the YouTube channel, John Boy Media.
I love John Boy. I don't watch it as much as you do, but how do you stay up on it? Do you just religiously go back to the site, or do you have alerts, or how do you track it?
Do you watch YouTube on your main TV?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I log into YouTube, typically with my wife and daughter, we've got 3 or 4 channels that we check every day to see if they have new uploads in our subscriptions.
Got it.
And so,
So you're subscribing, and then it shows up in your YouTube TV app.
It does. And it's like the popular ones are there, and then you can see when they have new content.
Okay.
And so if I see...
I just don't subscribe to a lot of YouTube channels, so I should if I want to get John Boy. I love John Boy.
3 or 4 at least, yeah. So the new automated ball strike system, the ABS system in Major League Baseball is fascinating to me, not just because it's sports and it's dramatic, but because of the larger issues that it raises about our transition to a new era of autonomy and the challenges that have been happening over the past week. So for people who have not been following this or who may not be baseball fans, this has been coming for a few years. They've been testing it out in the minor leagues. And the way it works generally is that when players on either team believe that the umpire got a ball or a strike call wrong, they can tap their helmet, and immediately there is a challenge if they have a challenge left to spend. And over the first couple weeks of the Major League Baseball season, repeatedly, some umpires have been having their calls overturned, one after the other. And it's added this whole new wrinkle to the game where some of the batters even are so confident that...
I love it. Yeah.
Yes.
I was at the opening series of the Mariners versus the Cleveland
you
Guardians.
Were. Oh, you were?
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, it was the coldest day of the series, but we still had fun. But Randy Arozarena got a called strike on him, and it was so funny to watch.
There's a knee buckler, strike 3 call to Randy. Okay, here we go. Wants to challenge right away. He's pretty convinced that that was a ball. This is what they see inside T-Mobile Park. ABS presented by T-Mobile, and the Mariners win their first challenge.
He immediately tapped his helmet and just he thought it was ball 4, and he just was like, "Oh yeah, I got this." And
because the umpire called it a strike.
Yeah, and he took off all of his gear. He disrobed all the crap that they have on him, and just started walking to first base.
So the umpire called a strike. Randy Arozarena tapped his helmet, was so confident that the umpire was wrong that he started just going to first base as if it was a walk.
And did so in such a cocky manner that was so awesome.
Yes, it's kind of this new showboating moment. It's almost like I saw somebody say modern day bat flip.
Yeah, these players have had to deal with umpires that have gotten things wrong for so long that they finally have some payback here.
Yes. There's one umpire, I almost feel bad for him, except his attitude over the years has not been the best. Let me just say that. C.B. Buckner. And he gets just basically skewered on John Boy. And, he had 5 in a row in one game.
Yeah, I think that was a Yankees game, if I recall.
It might have been the Reds, actually.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, but there were multiple games where he was...
this is happening in every game, too.
Yes.
It's really fascinating to watch. In fact, this past week, for the first time ever, a game ended on one of these calls. A pitch was thrown by the Orioles pitcher. It was called a ball. They challenged it immediately, and it was a strike, and it was the third strike, and it ended the game. The game was just over on an automated robotic system that called it. Now, the thing I really like about this, and, I'm a big sports nut, it's quick. So I'm a big soccer fan. And soccer, there's an equivalent of calling offside, which is a hard rule to kind of enforce. And sometimes they're not really challenges. They're just investigating where the line is and what part of the body part might be in front of the other. And it can take minutes. It slows the game down, and it's painful. I like the baseball system because it is almost instantaneous. So in that instance with the Orioles getting the win on this call, they challenge, they look at the robotic system within 5 seconds, and it's done. It's more like,
Hawkeye. It's more like in tennis.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're both tennis fans,
yes.
too. And it's like, this is more like tennis.
Yes.
This has been going on in tennis for ages, right? I mean, I don't know when the first Hawkeye system was put into tennis, but I feel like I've been watching automated balls in or out in tennis forever.
That's a perfect example to bring up, John, because this is where I feel like things are headed. If you look at what's happening in tennis, they're largely shifting away at many of the major tournaments from having line judges altogether and just going to automated systems of calls.
Yeah, and I believe the only one that still has the traditional lines judges in tennis is the French Open.
Which is interesting because it's on clay, and so you can go down and circle the mark, and it's a little bit old school in some ways.
It is old school, and maybe they just want to stay true to those traditions. But I think we're in the same camp on this. We like these systems, I would say, mostly.
Why not get it right?
Yeah, I think what I don't like about it is what happens in soccer when it draws on, and NFL for that matter, the back and forth on some of the play calling and whether somebody was an inch over a certain point of the line. It just,
you kind of need it in the NFL, though. I mean, there's
but
so
it goes
much going on
for so long. I just want instantaneous. If we're going to do it, let's let the robot make the decision and make it instantaneous.
Yes, and as weird as it might be to have no umpire behind the catcher in baseball, I think we're going to get there eventually, and I think the game is going to be better for it. Wouldn't you just rather know?
I don't know about that. I
really?
think that's a little further off. I mean, just as in tennis, you might not have the lines people, but you have there's
still a chair umpire.
Yeah, there's still a chair umpire to make sure, like, you can't run across the court and start beating the other opponent with your tennis racket or something.
What if you just had one umpire out between second and first or between second and third? Basically one umpire, or maybe somebody out there calling whether a ball was caught in the outfield. Like that would be maybe two umpires, one sort of floating in between the infield and the outfield.
Yeah, I think you need somebody that's going to maintain decorum.
But do you need somebody behind the plate? That's what I'm saying. I don't think you need somebody behind the plate.
Maybe that's the best place
I don't know,
for somebody. I don't know.
Then they can't call the outfield.
Yeah, but they can see a lot of the action in the infield
Maybe,
where most of the action is happening.
And
you're in between the two benches where the arguments happen. And
regardless of who's doing what where, I think you need to reach a point where the actual call, not the second guessing, but the actual call is made by the ABS system and not by the umpire, because you're just kind of proving that humans are incapable of doing this to a level of precision that the game deserves. That's my opinion. That's what all of this is showing, is that this is beyond human capability, which is fine. Who cares? Just get it right.
Well, what about just a robotic batter then? Is that what's next?
Speaking of, did you see the WSU story?
Yes.
Where the WSU researchers...
Washington State University.
Yes, Washington State University. Their researchers studied the torpedo bats that are popular with the Yankees in particular, where it's more of a kind of a bulbous barrel.
Yeah, it's described more as like a bowling pin shape.
Yes, perfect. And the theory is that they are able to use these to greater effect, that the weight distribution and the way that it swings ends up giving the Yankees an advantage, like the Yankees need an advantage.
Well, other teams can use it.
Other teams can use it too, but it's particularly popular. The Yankees are known for this thing. So the WSU researchers looked into this and determined that no, in fact, there's no significant statistical advantage based on their studies from using the torpedo bat. And I read the report. I didn't read like the actual nitty-gritty findings, but I read the Washington State University article about it, and Curt on our team wrote about it. I think there are like fundamental flaws in the way they did this study in multiple ways. The big one is they didn't do an actual swing. They basically just threw a ball at, automated ball pitch at the bat, stationary, almost like a bunt or something, and then got a sense for how the ball came off the bat that way. Anyway, I'm truly skeptical. I think these torpedo bats actually do give people an advantage. That's my theory.
Well, probably the quote of the week in a GeekWire story this week. The professor was quoted as saying, "Wood is wood," and saying that these bats are similar, whether it's the torpedo bat or a traditional bat.
Yes.
Wood is wood.
That's
but you're
true.
calling some BS on this.
I am.
Okay. I'm sure there'll be a counter study that comes out.
Yes. Maybe done by the University of Washington.
Maybe.
Just to spite the Cougs.
That's right.
All right. Hey, let's take one last break. And when we come back, we will do our GeekWire Trivia Challenge.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
This is GeekWire's Trivia Challenge.
Wouldn't you prefer a good game of chess?
That's right, John. It is time for our GeekWire Trivia Challenge. If you've never played before, this is just for fun, and it's multiple choice. And this being the week of Apple's 50th anniversary, I could not help but focus on something that I've loved to cover over the years, and that is the Apple-Microsoft rivalry, partnership, cooperation, investment. Like, the relationship between these two companies is very hard to define in one word, let alone one phrase or one sentence. But it is one of the most important relationships in technology. And I've been reading David Pogue's book about Apple's first 50 years. And there was a couple of anecdotes that really stood out to me. But one of them related to Microsoft's reaction to the word podcast. When podcasts first started to come out and they were associated with Apple's iTunes and, of course, Apple's iPod, Microsoft, according to David Pogue and the reporting that he did, was not happy with the word podcast. So I don't know if you know this, John, but Microsoft actually tried to popularize another word.
I love this.
Another
I have no
word.
idea what it is,
Okay.
but I think this is a great question.
Okay, so here we are. Microsoft, as we said, tried to popularize an alternative to podcasts. So we've got 5 options for you. A, netcasts. B, wind streams. C, media drops. D, Zune tunes. And E, MS casts.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
I
so
think
let me
all of these are. And what year was this? That'll
I
give
think
a
it was
hint.
roughly 2005, if I'm not mistaken.
2005. Yeah, give those 5 again, because those are tough.
Yes. Okay, here you go again. A, netcasts. B, wind streams. C, media drops. D, Zune tunes. Or E, MS casts.
I'm going to go with A, netcast.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
I don't
know
think they're as on the nose with wind streams or Zune tunes.
I gotta tell you, one of my
Did you have AI help in crafting the answers, or were these yours? Because these are pretty fun.
A few of them were mine.
Okay.
Yeah, Zune tunes.
Zune tunes is great in Seattle because there's a popular concert series at the Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle called Zoo Tunes.
Yes.
So that was clever.
I do get some help, but it's a combination. It's sort of a collaboration between me and AI. And I have to tell you, one of the most fun parts of the week is coming up with the trivia challenge. And the best part of coming up with the trivia challenge every week is the multiple choice answers that are wrong.
Well, why don't
me.
we do this since we're late in the podcast?
Yes.
If you have a suggestion on what Microsoft should have called podcasts instead of podcasts.
Email John.
Email john@geekwire.com, and we'll take the suggestions and bring them up next week, perhaps.
And again, if you do want the access to the videos from the Agents of Transformation event, you can email me. I will offer
Or
that
me.
up. Or John. Yeah. You've got the link. You can
Yeah.
do it too.
Yes.
Although it has been nice to have it coming to me, so then I can track the number. And you know what I do, John? Because I can't have a podcast where I don't talk about how I use AI. I've been using the Claude Gmail connector, and at the end of each day this week, I've been saying, hey, did I miss any emails from people asking for the event videos? And there were a few people that I had missed, and I was able to catch up. So if I didn't get to you, or if I haven't emailed you back, email me again, just as a reminder. So
Great question. And sorry to Microsoft that
Yes.
Netcast didn't stick.
You know, I think Leo Laporte, if I'm not mistaken, and the Twit podcast network, I'm pretty sure he actually used that for a while. Netcasts, because it was like, netcasts you love from people you trust or something like that. It was like, so he tried. And I noticed recently listening to some of their shows, he's gone back to podcast. So
No, podcast kind of stuck. Well, happy anniversary to Apple.
that's right. Happy anniversary to Apple. And I'll also link to another story that I did on the unexpected origins of the iPad in an offhanded comment that a Microsoft engineer made to Steve Jobs, according again to David Pogue's book. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Curt Milton edited this episode. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire co-founder John Cook.
We'll be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast. Can we just do something here real fast?
Yeah.
Real fast. I think it's Randy Arozarena.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Randy Arozarena.
Say it.
Let
Say
me
it.
get Holly.
Say it a few different times.
How is it? Randy Arozarena. Randy Arozarena. Arozarena.
I think.
Let me try again. I know it didn't. I'm still screwing it up.